20 things from the 1980s that kids today will never understand. The 80s were a world of their own, full of trends and tech that have since disappeared. Come along as we look back at 20 things, from fiddling with TV antennas to the screech of dial-up internet. We'll revisit the days of card catalogs, paper maps, and payphones. Prepare for a dose of nostalgia and a little shock at how much has changed arcade glory. Speaking of beeping, let's talk about the glorious noise of an 80s arcade. Do you remember walking into one of those places in the mall? The dim lights, the glow of the screens, and the constant symphony of digital explosions and button mashing was pure excitement. The air was thick with the thrill of competition. You'd see rows of game cabinets calling your name: Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Galaga. Each one was a quarter-fueled escape into another world. The arcade was more than a place to play games. It was the ultimate social hangout. Friendships and rivalries were born over a set of joysticks. But, like pages, the golden age of the arcade started to fade when home video game consoles arrived. All of a sudden, you could get that same rush right in your own living room. No quarters needed. Today, those mall arcades are mostly a fond memory, a nostalgic tribute to a time when gaming was a public spectacle. Paper maps. Before a calm voice from our phones told us where to turn, finding your way around was a real adventure. Do you remember wrestling with a giant, unfolded paper map while trying to drive? Or that triumphant feeling when you finally found your destination? After squinting at tiny street names, we relied on those trusty road atlases and scribbled directions. And sometimes a wrong turn led to a great discovery. Then, GPS devices arrived and changed everything, freeing our glove compartments from their paper clutter. These little gadgets with their digital maps felt like magic. No more arguing over which way was north. You just typed in an address and followed the directions. Now, our smartphones do it all, giving us real-time traffic updates and alternate routes with a simple tap. Thanks to technology, those essential paper maps have become charming relics of a time when getting lost was just part of the journey. Walkmans. Before we had AirPods and endless playlists, we carried our music with us on a Walkman. Remember those portable cassette players? They were more than just a device. They were a ticket to your own private world, a personal soundtrack for your daily life. The slight hiss of the tape and the loud click of the buttons were all part of the charm. We would spend hours making mixtapes, recording songs from the radio or dubbing them from vinyl albums. A good mixtape was a labor of love, a message crafted with music. But as technology improved, our trusty Walkmans started collecting dust. The iPod, which could hold 1,000 songs in your pocket, was a game changer that signaled the end of the cassette era. Now, our smartphones do it all. It's amazing how far we've come, but the Walkman still holds a special place in our hearts. It represents a time when listening to music was a more deliberate and tangible experience. Answering machines. Remember coming home to that little blinking red light on a machine next to your phone? That was the answering machine, the gatekeeper of all your missed calls. It ran on a tiny cassette tape that would dutifully record messages, complete with a mechanical whir and a loud beep. There was an art to leaving the perfect outgoing message, but the real fun was screening your calls. You'd listen as a friend or a telemarketer started talking, giving you the power to decide whether to pick up. It was our first line of defense against unwanted conversations. Now, voicemail is just a silent notification on our smartphones, and texting has replaced most short calls entirely. Those bulky machines are gone. but we'll never forget the sound of a loved one's voice captured on a tiny, tangled ribbon of tape. Neon spandex. Let's set the scene. It's 1985. Hair is big, music is loud, and everywhere you look, there's an explosion of neon spandex. There was truly a time when wearing skin-tight, electric pink leggings or a lime green bodysuit was the height of fashion. The brighter and bolder, the better neon spandex perfectly captured the fun-loving, expressive spirit of the 80s. It was all about being seen and having a good time, whether you were at the gym or the mall. A splash of neon was the perfect statement. But, as with all trends, fashion moved on. The 90s brought in a more minimalist look with looser fits and muted colors. And neon spandex was banished to the back of the closet, saved only for costume parties. While neon still pops up now and then, it's no longer the everyday uniform it once was. For those who lived it, it's a colorful memory of a time when fashion was fearless. Network TV. Do you recall when the whole family would gather around the television at 8:00 p.m. sharp to watch a big premiere, or rushing home from school just in time for your favorite afternoon show? Back then, our lives were scheduled around network TV. We had to check the TV guide and program the VCR if we were going to miss something. It was a shared experience we'd all talk about at work the next day. Now, we're living in an age of total viewing freedom. With services like Netflix and Hulu, we are the masters of our own TV schedules, binge-watching an entire season over a weekend. Easy. Rewatching a favorite episode for the 5th time. No problem. This shift gave us incredible control, but it also changed how we experience television. The shared excitement of waiting a whole week for the next chapter has mostly faded, replaced by our own personal viewing bubbles, payphones. Can you even picture a time when you couldn't just pull a phone from your pocket to make a call? It sounds like ancient history. But there was an era when the payphone was the undisputed king of communication on the go. Imagine walking down any street and seeing those trusty phone booths standing like sentinels on the corner. They were a lifeline. Back then, payphones were as common as ATMs are today, essential for calling home to say you were running late or for making a business call when you were out of the office. But much like the dinosaurs, their time came to an end. The smartphone arrived, a sleek little gadget that put a world of communication in the palm of your hand. Once everyone had a personal phone, those public booths became lonely relics. Today, you'd be hard-pressed to find one. Most have been pulled out, making way for things like Wi-Fi hotspots or digital ads. It's amazing how fast our everyday world can be reshaped by new inventions. Typewriters. Picture a world with no backspace, no delete key, where every letter you typed was permanently stamped on the page. That was the reality of using a typewriter. Those wonderfully mechanical machines that were fixtures in every office and home. Do you remember that rhythmic click-clack of the keys and the satisfying ding when you reached the end of a line? Becoming a fast, accurate typist was a real skill. Correction fluid and whiteout tape were your best friends, because the fear of a typo was very real. But as personal computers became common, the typewriter's reign came to an end. Word processors, with their magical ability to edit and save documents, were just too convenient to ignore. Today, typewriters are charming curiosities, loved by collectors and writers who appreciate their analog appeal. It's a great reminder that even the simplest tools can make a lasting impression. Floppy disks. Do you recall those square plastic disks, the ones we'd carefully label and treat like precious cargo? Those were floppy disks, and they were the backbone of the early computer era. Before we had the cloud or giant hard drives, these little squares held our entire digital worlds, term papers, family photos, and our favorite computer games. You had to handle them so carefully, keeping them away from magnets and praying they wouldn't get damaged, because losing the data on one was a catastrophe. But like so many other things on this list, their time was limited. As our files got bigger, we needed more storage. The USB drive came along, a tiny stick that could hold vastly more data. Then came the cloud, where we could store everything without a physical disk at all. The floppy disk, once a marvel of technology, is now a nostalgic symbol of a time when saving our work involved a lot of patience and a very distinct whirring sound. Drive-in theaters. Remember those perfect summer nights, packed in the station wagon with a bag of popcorn, watching a movie on a giant screen under the stars. Drive-in theaters were a special kind of magic. It was about more than just a movie. It was an experience. Kids could wear their pajamas, and you could enjoy the movie from the privacy of your own car. It was a perfect blend of family fun and nostalgia. But as time went on, the land the drive-ins sat on became more valuable for building shopping centers and multiplexes with fancy sound systems. The rise of VCRs and home entertainment also made it easier to just stay in. And let's be honest, those tinny speakers you hung on your window weren't exactly top-notch quality. While most drive-ins are gone, a few have managed to hang on, serving as a wonderful reminder of a simpler, starlit time. Film photography. Do you remember the feeling of dropping off a roll of film and then waiting, sometimes for days, to see how your pictures came out? That was the unique magic of film photography. Before our phones made us all photographers, the 35mm camera was king. Using one took a bit of skill. You had to think about lighting, focus, and aperture. Since there were no automatic settings to help you, every click of the shutter felt important because you only had 24 or 36 shots on a roll. You had to make each one count. The best part was finally getting those developed prints back, reliving your memories, and finding a few surprise gems among the blurry ones. Today, we take countless photos with a simple tap. Our digital cameras give us instant results and endless redos. But there's still a certain charm to film. The grain, the anticipation, and the happy accidents created a kind of magic that a perfect digital photo can't always capture. Dial-up internet. Can you still hear that sound? That series of whirs, screeches, and beeps that meant you were connecting to the internet. That was the official anthem of the early digital age. Back then, dial-up was how we got online, and it took a whole lot of patience. The computer would slowly, loudly make a connection, and you couldn't use the phone while it was happening. Downloading one song could take half an hour, and streaming a video was the stuff of science fiction. But boy, did we learn to wait. Progress, however, moves fast. Broadband internet came along and offered lightning-fast speeds, making downloads and videos a reality. Dial-up, our first gateway to the online world, quickly became obsolete. A funny memory of a time when our digital lives moved at a much slower pace. The Rolodex. Before your contacts were stored in a cloud, they lived in a Rolodex on your desk. This rotating card file was the command center for any serious professional. Each contact had its own card, filled out by hand with a name, company, and phone number. Finding someone was a satisfying, tactile experience of spinning the knob and flipping through the alphabetized cards. A well-stocked Rolodex was a status symbol, a physical representation of your network. But the digital age made it obsolete. Why spin a wheel when you can just type a name into a search bar? Our phones now hold thousands of contacts that can be updated and synced instantly. That trusty Rolodex has been replaced by an invisible list, a quiet reminder of a more hands-on way of staying connected. VHS tapes. Remember that Friday night ritual? Piling into the car and heading to the video store was a highlight of the week. You could almost taste the buttered popcorn in the air as you wandered the aisles, families debating which movie to take home. That whole experience was an event in itself. Those stores were more than just rental shops. They were the local watering hole for movie lovers, humming with the shared joy of finding that last copy of a new release on the shelf. Well, times have certainly changed. Movie night is still a cherished tradition, but now the movies come to us. With a few taps on a remote, streaming services like Netflix and Hulu open up an entire universe of choices right from our living rooms. No more Be Kind, rewind stickers, or last-minute dashes to avoid a late fee. It's remarkable how technology has made things so convenient. Still, you can't help but feel a little wistful for those bustling video rental shops. A sweet reminder of a time when movie night felt like a grand adventure. Smoke-filled skies. It seems unbelievable today, but there was a time when lighting up a cigarette on an airplane was perfectly normal. Can you imagine that now? Planes had actual smoking sections. It seemed reasonable enough at the time, but as we learned about the dangers of secondhand smoke, it became obvious that trapping smoke in a metal tube was a terrible idea. Things started to change in the 90s as airlines began banning smoking on their flights, much to the relief of non-smokers who were tired of arriving at their destinations smelling like an ashtray. By the early 2000s, smoking on planes was a thing of the past, thanks to strict regulations around the world. Today, if you tried to light up mid-flight, you'd get more than just dirty looks. You'd be facing a massive fine and legal trouble. The clear air in cabins is a huge win for public health. Reading newspapers in print at breakfast. Remember the crinkle of the newspaper, the smell of fresh ink, and the familiar thud of the paper hitting your front porch in the morning. For many of us, that was the soundtrack of breakfast. Reading the paper with a cup of coffee was a daily ritual. It was our connection to the world, a way to catch up on local news, check the sports scores, and maybe do the crossword puzzle. But just like the milkman, the daily newspaper ritual has mostly vanished. The internet now delivers a constant personalized stream of news directly to our screens. We scroll through headlines on our phones while we wait for the coffee to brew, catching up on everything in minutes. While digital news is incredibly convenient, something was lost. The physical feeling of holding a paper and discovering an interesting story on an inside page is an experience that is quickly fading away. Cassette tapes. Long before Spotify knew what songs we'd like, we had to work for our music. There was a unique thrill in hovering over the stereo, finger on the record button, waiting to catch a favorite song from the radio. Remember that you'd listen for hours, hoping the DJ wouldn't talk over the intro. It was a game of patience and quick reflexes, and it was so rewarding when you captured that perfect, clean recording. Building a mixtape was a true art form. You were carefully curating a soundtrack, a piece of your soul you could hand to someone. These days, our music library is endless and immediate. Streaming services give us millions of songs on demand. While you can't beat the convenience, there was a certain magic to the mixtape. The anticipation, the effort, and the hunt for the perfect song made the music feel a little more personal. TV antennas. before cable and satellites gave us hundreds of perfect channels. Getting a clear TV picture was a family project. Remember those rabbit ears antennas sitting on top of the TV? You were constantly getting up to adjust them, turning them a little to the left, a little to the right, hoping to get rid of the snow on the screen. Sometimes you had to add a little aluminum foil to the ends for better reception. It was a delicate dance, with someone by the TV yelling, "Stop, go back a little," to the person adjusting the ears. Today, we just turn on the TV and expect a flawless, high-definition picture. The frustrating but sometimes comical ritual of fighting with an antenna for a clear signal is a memory that truly belongs to a different era of television. Using a pager. Remember those little plastic boxes clipped to a doctor's belt? The ones that would start beeping right in the middle of dinner? Those were pagers. And for a while, they were the peak of mobile communication. Before everyone had a phone in their pocket, professionals relied on these little devices to stay in touch. You'd get that familiar beep, look at the number on the tiny screen, and then have to find a payphone to return the call. Pagers kept you on a short leash, always waiting for that next summons. Then, the cell phone boom happened, and suddenly, those beepers looked like ancient artifacts. Why carry a device that only received numbers when you could have a phone that made calls and sent text messages? The pager's days were numbered, and it was quickly overtaken by the mobile revolution. Now, pagers are museum pieces, a fun reminder of a time when being reachable was a bit more of a two-step process. The card catalog chronicles. Before you could Google anything, the search for information started in the quiet halls of the library, surrounded by the gentle scent of old books. Our primary tool was the card catalog, a huge cabinet filled with thousands of neatly organized index cards. It was a hands-on experience, pulling open the heavy wooden drawers, flipping through the cards, and debating the Dewey Decimal System with a friend. You'd carefully write down the call numbers and then set off on a hunt through the stacks, hoping the book you needed was actually there. But just like dial-up modems, the card catalog has become a piece of history, replaced by efficient online databases. Today, we can browse a library's entire collection from home with just a few clicks. While it's certainly easier, there was a special sense of discovery in using the old card catalog that a search bar just can't replicate. Please share with us which part of this article you found most impressive or interesting in the comments. Thank you.